Well, good morning. So today I want to talk about web scraping with Google Sheets. My name is Ben Rogjan. I'm a data scientist over at Akron Analytics. My background specifically is in data science and engineering and data engineering in the healthcare field, the web scraping, finance and operations. I've worked on projects that kind of involve reducing patient readmission, detecting fraud in insurance claims, maximizing and optimizing finance and operations. So for ticketing systems in IT systems, as well as employees and invoicing. So I like to tell everyone I've worked on everything except for the front end. So I'm not much of a front end person. I don't think I have the patience to make everything look pretty, but most of what I have to do is on the logic and business side. Yeah. Awesome. So that's about me. So for web scraping, I wanted to just make a kind of talk about some current events that have kind of happened in the web scraping world. So recently, a company called HiQ actually ended up suing LinkedIn because HiQ scrapes LinkedIn data, and LinkedIn began to put in things into place that would limit what HiQ could scrape offline or online. And HiQ ended up suing LinkedIn, saying that they should be allowed to scrape anything off of public profiles, and actually ended up winning against LinkedIn. The judge ruled that it was totally okay for a company to scrape information off of public profiles. So just more of kind of personally an interesting case to me. So web scraping, some people kind of look at as a gray area, but as long as it's public information, people view it as okay to see and okay to do. As long as it's public. So why would you use web scraping? The only purpose I would say was like if you've only got one or two links you're looking at, you can probably copy and paste whatever it is. But the theory is if you're automating, 1,000 links, you probably need to, in order to gather data, you're going to need to automate something and start building something that really lets you not have to go and copy paste from 1,000 different links. This picture is just kind of a funny thing that when you build automation, somehow it's supposed to take off work, but in the end, whenever you build it, it ends up taking too much time. So using Google Sheets has a few functions that can let you scrape different forms of data. There's import HTML, XML, feed, and data. Import HTML will let you do tables and lists. So if you ever see a table on a website, then you can use that. If you see import XML is one of the things that I'll be focusing on. That's specifically if you're looking at specific HTML tags inside a web page. Import feed, that's specifically if you ever heard of like an RSS feed or Atom feed. That lets you scrape that. And then import data is specifically if there are TSV and CSVs online, that like comma separated files or tab separated files, it will let you scrape those things and put them into Google Sheets. So just to go over import XML, you're actually going to have to go into the HTML of a web page to find the tag. And I'll show kind of an example of this, but I've just kind of pulled up, like if anyone's ever done, you typically right click and look at it, inspect element in like Firefox or Google Chrome, and you'll be able to actually look at the HTML in a page and see what information is in what tag. And the tag is that thing held by two carets on both sides. So in this case, like div class equals post content is an example of something you'd be looking for. So I'm going to go over this just with instructions right now because I'm going to share this with you guys. But I'm going to go to Eventbrite here in a second, and we're going to scrape kind of the events that they have. Like I said, you're going to right click on inspect element, find the HTML tag we're interested in. In this case, I'm going to look at div class equals list card body, and then you basically will transfer that into an XML string. So it kind of takes on this dash dash div at class list card body, and that will get you that information. And I'll show another example. For instance, if you wanted to get all the URLs on the page, which it takes a little bit different form because you're going for a little bit different set of information. And then if you've ever used an Excel function, you know, this one takes specifically the URL, so the thing from step 1, and then the XML string, so the information from step 5 or step 7. And that's how you're going to end up scraping things offline. So I'm going to see if I can just make this switch. Will let me. Did it switch to?
Yes, it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so like I said, so we'll take this link here for Eventbrite, and you can end up saying, you know, import XML. So it wants the URL. You can just click, since I have it already saved, I'm just going to click it. So then afterwards, we're going to need the string, which I'm going to take from here, just so it saves me typing time. And you can end up feeding it here. The one thing I do know, though, is those single quotes are slightly different. You'll see it's loading. Oh, what?
I think you may be missing the other / right before div.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Copy paste. You've done me wrong. So, okay. So what you'll notice is it just picked up all of the information. So from this site, if I were to go to this site, I guess I should have showed the site first.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I would have gone to the site, it's basically a like all the events near you kind of thing. So maybe you're looking to pull it all for some reason, and I want all this information. So when I go back to this web scraping demo, it's like, okay, so you've got the date, the what the name is, and where it's at. So then you end up seeing.
Now that information of where, when it's at, is that what you put in the command, or is that just the information that's available on the website?
So this is information that's available on the website in the specific tag. So if I were to go, look here, that's right. Safari is weird. Let me know if, by the way,
everything. I can see everything that you're doing.
Perfect. Okay. It seemed like it was specifically asking me for one link.
Okay.
So let's see. So if you were to go inside here, hold on. You just have to find the right, wherever the information lives. Where do you live? Did I pass it? Okay. So it lives in there. And then basically, okay, so these two tags is where the information lives. So,
you know what? Maybe I can't see the screen you are on right now because I'm still on the Everett Washington page events.
Oh, okay. You sure? Let's.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay. So what I've done is basically opened up the inspect element by right-clicking, and it'll give you inspect element, which lets you look at basically the HTML of a website. And that HTML right here is, if you see on the actual web page itself, the glowing blue side is what I'm interested in looking at. So the div class list card body holds all that information. And so it's got this time tag in there that I've pulled out. This is one that actually you get all three of these, because all three of these bits of information live inside of this body essentially. Okay. And so you get all three little bits of information.
Okay.
And so that's how I pulled all three of those.
All right.
Let's go back. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. So you can basically do that, what's nice is you can do that again. And you can just end up copying this, changing this to A2, and then if you want the second page, essentially, it will pull the second page.
Okay.
So this is just an example specifically for events. I also ended up doing this with stock prices. So
Okay.
stock prices and headlines, and those things are things that update constantly. And I did build, like, for instance, a quick demo. If you were to look in, say, Tableau. So this kind of dashboard that I've put together is a combination of, it's pulling stock information, but it's also pulling headline information on, in this case, on Snapchat and tailored brands.
Okay.
So all these lighter blue dots are actually, it's tied to a headline. So there's the normal blue dots that are the stock price kind of flowing that is pulling from online. And then the lighter blue dots are actually a headline. And so I can actually click this headline. You can't tell, but I clicked it. And since, let me show you, I have to, when I clicked this headline, it actually took me to the link that I wanted.
Oh, I can't see the link. No. Okay, no, I can't.
Yeah, so it actually took me to this link that was connected to it.
Cool.
Because that was set up to do that. When it scraped it, it also scraped the URL for where that headline is that might be interesting for that specific stock. And that's also in our scraping demo. So with the stock prices, the stock itself is just a table. So that's one nice thing, is that because it's just a table, it makes it much, much simpler to scrape for. In the sense that, oh, I didn't want that. Hold on. Okay. So unlike the import XML, import HTML just requires, so import HTML, it's expecting to pull a table. So unlike import XML, so you just have to tell that I'm going to pull a table.
Okay.
And then on a website, there might be multiple tables. In this case, I know that the table I'm looking for is the 6th table on the website. And then that'll pull all that stock information live. It pulls it every 2 hours using Google Sheets. But yeah, you can
so it automatically updates?
Yes, every 2 hours. You can also force it to update using triggers, but that requires some scripting.
Okay.
But it'll do it itself. And just to show what I mean by, there's different tables. So if I hit 5, it'll pull from a different table, which just doesn't have the same information.
Okay.
And I wanted the 6th table on there. So yes, I was able to do that with different stocks as well as headlines. So the headlines themselves, I've kind of built a little more, something that's a little more systematic, because it's pulling, if you can see in the import XML string, it's mostly things that are just variables, because I tried to build more of a system. So on the metadata tag or table, I've kind of got what I'm looking for. So these are the XML strings, just telling me what they are. Because sometimes websites will change their HTML. So this just makes it easier for me if they were to change something in their website, that I can go in and only change a variable here, and then it automatically updates in my table over here. That way I'm not spending too much time having to change each of these values. So that's kind of...
What information is here? Can you scroll to the right of your worksheet to see what else?
Sure, sure, definitely. So this information is specifically it's a headline that's happened for that specific stock, a date, kind of time, the URL. So that's the URL that I'm pulling. That way you can click on that story, and that's really it. So it's giving you a headline. So that way on the Tableau you can see what the headline is, and then it'll take you to the URL.
Okay.
And all of that kind of exists on this other link. On the first URL is where you'll find all these headlines, essentially.
Okay.
Latest news. And that way, again, it's a live feed type thing. As soon as something new comes up, it will automatically pull it.
Okay.
And then the one other thing that I kind of found that was helpful with web scraping is there's also this query function. Because sometimes when you pull things in without this query function, don't do that. Enter. Let's see if this one is a good example. It should be. Oh, that's right, because it's on a different sheet. Hold on. So it's not a great example because it only pulls in these few.
The headlines.
Huh?
The headlines, it only pulled the headlines.
Yeah, I don't pull the headlines. Sometimes what it'll end up doing, it will actually pull more columns. And especially when you're building more something that's automated, I like to know exactly how many columns I'm going to get, because occasionally it would pull like 2 lines for one, or 2 columns for one, 3 columns for another one of these lines. So there's this query function. And if anyone out there is familiar with SQL, it kind of looks like SQL, or it really is just SQL. So I can select basically column 1 if there were multiple columns.
Okay.
In this case, there's only 1 column, but if there was more, it also lets you limit, like if you only want to grab like 3, you can get only 3 of those things. That way you kind of can control how much information shows up.
Okay.
So that's kind of just a nice little thing that I found, that if you're trying to especially control what's coming in, like on this page, or on the headlines sheet, I actually limited it to 1.
Okay.
And I have this number to tell me how much what I'm doing is offsetting it. So it just goes to the next page or the next headline. Just for kind of control purposes. And that way I know how many pages are coming in, and that way I can go to the next page. So this one, there's page 2. And if for any reason there was going to be a 16th, it's not going to break the whole thing. If there's like a 16th headline on the first page, it wouldn't throw off this whole system and break it. So just kind of controlled everything for me.
Okay.
Yes. So that's kind of, I don't know if you want to see anything else.
Well, let me ask you something. So the students are going to be doing research on a variety of topics. So there's a lot, anything from the use of or interacting with TV shows and trying to get information from users online, to what else are they working on? Oh, the effectiveness of videos for political campaigns. So they have a variety of topics, and I want to help them understand how this might be useful to them. So what kind of applications, other than what you showed today, do you think are most common when you're doing web scraping and trying to get data? Like what have you seen in terms for research purposes?
Yeah, so Twitter is obviously kind of an interesting place, or any of the social media sites from a research standpoint. In the recent election, obviously Twitter somehow played an interesting role, as well as Facebook. So those are interesting places that you can kind of look and see. You can look at sentiment analysis. A lot of people do like sentiment analysis of like tweets. some people, for instance, Reddit, which is another place you can kind of scrape. Right before the election, I was actually watching a talk about people, scraping Reddit threads and then creating chatbots that could somehow manipulate the people's opinion and who to vote for. So it was an interesting, and then of course we had the whole fake news thing. So it was very interesting to see that, eventually we might have bots that are online that are scraping this information, figuring out who you are and figuring out a strategy to kind of maybe coerce you into the other side, or make your argument seem moot. So that's kind of an interesting application of web scraping, is kind of to get information about you. Sorry.
If you did that on a Twitter feed, would it also show the messages that have been deleted, or would it only show those that are on the current feed?
It would only show those ones that are on the current feed. Okay. If you were to save them into a database, that way, anything that comes up, you save, then it'd be good. But if you've just got like a live feed that only scrapes what's there, then you're going to be limited.
Okay. So tell me, you were gonna mention something about social media analytics when we talked last week. What kind of social media tools do you think are most useful, other than obviously doing Google Analytics? But have you played around with any specific tools that you would say, yeah, this tool is definitely worth recommending?
Specifically when it comes to social media, a lot of what I've done is, is from scratch. Let me see if I still have. So I actually have, let's see if it'll.
How do you install that add-on, or does it automatically come with Google Sheets?
Oh, okay, yeah. So you would have to go and get it. See if your Google account is now okay. Where did you take me? Use. Yeah, I did have to go get this.
Okay.
Yeah, get Twitter Archiver.
Okay.
Let's see. Create a search rule. Let's say all of these words.
Okay.
Okay, and now it's going to basically, the problem is now it's going to take some time to basically pull tweets, but it's pulling tweets essentially. So this, if you're looking for an easy way to pull tweets, this is it. It basically, it takes all the programming out. For people who are not programmers, this kind of, this is one of probably a few tools, but I think this is one of the very helpful ones, just because it's right here in Google Sheets. It's going to shove it all into Google Sheets. You're not going to be sitting here having to program something. And from there, again, if you want to do analysis maybe of text, that tends to be something you're going to have to do using some sort of programming language, because it'll let you break down things like, I guess, sentiment, what words might be used frequently. So this will let you just pull it basically.
Ben, do you know if it has a limit of how many tweets it can fetch?
Twitter itself only allows you to pull so many. This one, I think, pulls 10,000 at a time.
Okay.
Twitter will eventually, so this is connected to my account, so it'll only let me pull so many tweets per account.
Okay.
And then it'll kind of throttle you for a little bit and be like, hey, you've hit your limit. So one thing I forgot to mention, I haven't used it in a while because they've made it a charged service since recently. And it's definitely in the world of social sciences, is Node XL. And Node XL, have you heard of it?
Yeah, and and it's great, but you need to do it on a PC.
Okay, yeah.
And I have a PC just for that purpose, but I haven't gotten that far with Node XL yet. Have you had experience with Node XL?
So I have used it. I used it back when it was free to do everything, and so then I recently tried using it again, and I think I was very limited on what I could do. So I was like, oh, well, that's too bad. Because
did you like it as a tool?
yeah, I thought it was really cool. At the time, I was doing a marketing project, and so I like was looking at Coca-Cola and seeing, who are the big influencers using the word Coke. Obviously you see Coke and then a few other brands, and it's interesting because you'll see different brands around Coke even kind of play off each other.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see one or two random, influencers who might really like Coke. So I thought it was really cool. It's a great way to kind of show, who is the influencer in a certain subject. So, if you were to look up Trump right now, maybe you'd see, those 3 to 4 accounts that are really the big influencers and the people who are the big retweeters. So I think it's really, really kind of cool and really easy in comparison to having to do a lot of that from hand.
Do you know if there is already out there an alternative to Node Excel for Mac users?
I don't. I haven't seen anything.
Okay. All right. Show me what you got here for Twitter.
So for Twitter, you'll see the date of the tweet, the person that tweeted it, the text name, the tweet text, tweet ID. So if you ever make more of a database, that way you can connect it.
Mm-hmm.
App, I'm going to guess, is just where it's coming from. So is it if this, then that, Twitter from Android, etc. It'll tell you how many followers this person has, how many people are following, how many retweets this thing had, how many favorites. They were a user since, so you can tell how long this person's been a user since, where they are, their bio, and they also have their profile picture if you want to click it and look at it. So it gives you, I think, a pretty decent amount of information that I pulled just by adding on add-on, and then suddenly I have all this information.
Do you know? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, specifically just for data science. I looked up data science. So
yeah, no, that's wonderful. Have you tried with any other? Is there any connection between Google Sheets and Facebook or Instagram or other of those platforms?
I have not at this moment. I'm sure if Facebook is cool with it, because that's usually the thing. Is I think Twitter is definitely the most lenient when it comes to pulling information from it. Facebook tends to be a little more begrudging about giving you information, as does Instagram. Even from like just a web scraping side, when I've created programs, Twitter tends to be fine, and Instagram and Facebook will try to shut you out just because they make money based off that data, and so if you scrape it, you're taking their money. But Twitter's pretty good about it. Twitter, I like to say, is built for bots. Basically, it's an interesting experiment area.
Have you ever done any data scraping or work for, I mean, just throwing out there, Amazon, or looking at Amazon users?
So I haven't myself looked at that. I know that websites do, especially for more pricing. So like competitive pricing, they'll bots will scrape Amazon to try to, beat Amazon's prices. I also know I recently read an article where basically Amazon has put in things where they'll still let bots do that. They'll just slow them down so they can specifically track who is using more bot tactics, and then they'll slow down those specific IP addresses and programs, just because again you're attacking their livelihood. So they do try to limit it.
Yeah. So I guess in wrapping up, and this has been so useful, and I might want us to have not only maybe an additional one of these, but maybe an option where you can actually speak directly to the students. And I'm sorry I couldn't get them together for today, but I think they might have a lot of interest in what you're doing and the expertise that you have. But I wanted to ask you one last question: is what have you found most useful in terms of your thinking? Oh, I don't know if that's yours or mine. Hold on. Sorry about that. I think that's mine. In terms of your thinking about learning from the data, what have what has web scraping given you most?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that question is clear, but let me know.
Let me see. I mean, for me, just being an engineer, I guess there's always the re-engineering aspect. So for me, I just kind of like to see how other companies set up their data. Um,
When you're doing analysis on the data science hashtag, for example, or data science as a keyword, what have you learned anything about how people talk about that concept in particular, or have you not gone that far into the analysis of that?
Yeah, not specifically with data science. What from a marketing standpoint, what I've done and helped companies do is look at what groups of people, maybe they like a hashtag, maybe they like say Monster Energy drink. Okay, well, what else do they like? What other maybe we can find that this group that is for Monster Energy drink also likes BMX events. So then where to put Monster Energy drink, because that your clientele will be there. And so that's usually from what you do with web scraping, especially with like say hashtags, is what tends to be a great kind of tool, because you start getting more information about your customer because it's all there. Your customer will be like, you're going to see that, hey, this same customer that likes Coca-Cola is also into I don't know, some baseball or something. And then where to put yourself, what to talk about, what influencer maybe to contact based off that information. So it's really, I like to tell people, web scraping and getting this information from online really kind of lets you, even if you're a large company, feel like a small company, because you can really gain all this insight into your customers without having to go talk to them. Because you don't have that ability anymore to go talk to every one of your 1 million followers, but you can aggregate all that information and figure out what your 1 million followers are saying. So
yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben. This has been really, really insightful and just really cool. I am looking forward to sharing this with the students.